we're really on the cusp of a new development agenda, and if it were to work, and if we can make it become something meaningful, it could make a difference. And what's interesting is that already in the current weak version of the Sustainable Development Goals, we see social protection, and the social protection floor mentioned in 3 places. In the very first goal, which is about hunger and poverty. In the second goal, which is about inequities between and among countries. And it's also in the gender goal, where it's part of the care economy and looking at how one can valorize care work through social protection transfers. So there is an opportunity, but it still needs to be seized more forcefully to make the thinking around a social protection floor from that recommendation from 2012, the recommendation 202, to make that recommendation really gel and become something that everyone is referring to that's looking at the new development agenda. And so if we put social protection as one policy area into a visionary approach, it's really about saying there's a right to education, there's a right to health, there's a right to water, and there's a right to social protection. I think one has to really present it as something that every person on the planet, all 7 billion people, really ought to be enjoying every single day. Then, of course, it is also important to emphasize how different forms of social protection have made a difference. We know that social protection can help disadvantaged children go to school. We know that it can improve concentration levels through school meals, etc. So there's a lot of impact of an economistic nature that I think we also have to bring into the discussion. And when we're looking at social protection, I would position it in that discourse on what the government is meant to be providing in terms of public goods, which means, first of all, it's a right. Secondly, in my view, it has to be funded from government resources. And I think the UN has to be much more outspoken. I don't see any anger in the UN. I'm missing emotions. At the more pedestrian level, I think the role of the UN could be to bring the different parts of the UN system, the different UN agencies, to bring them together around common initiatives and common policies. Nepal is a country that's not talked about a lot, which is a pity because it has extremely interesting policy experiences to share. And what interests us very strongly is the fact that they have the different coalition governments in 2007, 2008 have been introducing a whole range of social protection and social policy measures more broadly. And these include improving the pension, introducing completely from scratch a child benefit, introducing benefits for different socially excluded groups, different castes. Nepal is quite an interesting example of a very poor country, and on top of that, riven by civil strife, etc., that's accomplished something that's quite significant. Myanmar is currently in a very crucial stage of its development. On the surface, it's becoming more democratic because the military regime has stepped back, although I would not say it's a total transformation of governance. But at the level of policy debate, the fact that there's a parliament that's quite outspoken and very engaged, the country's been passing lots of new legislation in all kinds of areas, and this social protection strategy was very much influenced, I think, by the social protection floor. It's using a life cycle approach. It's looking at universalism as the guiding principle, and it's interesting how much this discourse in Myanmar as a newly opening up country has been influenced by the international discussions on the social protection floor.